Howdy, everybody. Dr. Andy Woods here, pastor teacher here at Sugarland Bible Church. I want to welcome you to Pastor's Point of View number 384. This is being released November the 28th, 2025, one day after Thanksgiving. And so I'm hoping, trusting, praying everyone had a tremendous Thanksgiving celebration. Certainly we have a lot to be thankful for. We can think of material blessings, but we also want to think about the spiritual blessings that we have. The book of Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3 tells us that we have been blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places. So based on that, we can truly rejoice and give thanks to God, who is the giver of good gifts. We have a prophecy update for you today. If you take a look here at our preview slide, there's the 5 areas that we're going to work through, as you're going to see today very, very quickly. And let's start out with Israel's wealth. One of the things Bible prophecy indicates is that the nation of Israel in the last days would not just return to their land, but as they returned to their land, they would actually become wealthy to the jealousy of her surrounding neighbors. Notice Ezekiel 38 and verse 12, describing why Israel's various near neighbors and far neighbors will attack her in the last days. They're coming to capture Israel's spoil, plunder, and cattle and goods. If you look at the next verse, Ezekiel 38, verse 13, these attackers are coming in the end time scenario to capture Israel's silver and gold and great spoil. It's interesting that Mark Twain in 1867 visited that part of the world and wrote about it 2 years later in 1869 in his book, Innocents Abroad, and this is what Mark Twain saw in 1867. He didn't see wealth. What he saw was a desolate country whose soil is rich enough, but is given over wholly to weeds. A silent, mournful expanse, a desolation is here that not even imagination can grace. With the pomp of life and action, we never saw a human being on the whole route, and there was hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere, even the olive tree. And the cactus, those fast friends of worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. And look at what has happened to Israel since that period of time. She became a nation again in 1948, and look at her gross domestic product today, outstripping that of her surrounding neighbors, causing the kind of jealousy that Ezekiel predicted would culminate in the invasion of Israel in the last days. I just have a fast article, further documenting Israel's great wealth. This one comes from allisraelnews.com, a November 12th, 2025 article. And here's a summary of it. Israel's cement industry, particularly Nesher Israel Cement, is thriving due to the nation's population growth and building boom. The Ramla plant, using modern technology and petcoke fuel, produces a significant portion of Israel's cement. The growth, listen to this, aligns with biblical prophecy in Ezekiel 36, verses 10 and 11, suggesting divine providence. This is a fascinating article, documenting this cement and industrial power that Israel is acquiring. But the article says Ezekiel 36, verse 11, prophesies that the nation of Israel would prosper more in the end times than it would in former time. So we're living in a general time period where these kinds of prophecies are almost jumping off the page, although given 2,600 years ago, into prophetic alignment and prophetic fulfillment. Let's go to our second category, and this has to do with something I alluded to a little earlier. the world coming against Israel in the end times. I mean, this wealth causes covetousness and jealousy, which gives the nations of the earth an ambition to invade Israel. And what you have predicted in the end time scenario is worldwide anti-Semitism. Notice Zechariah 12, verse 3. This is a prophecy given 2,500 years ago. It says, "It will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone. All the nations who lift it will be severely injured." And look at this. "And all the nations of the earth," all means all, "will be gathered against it," it being the city of Jerusalem. There's a parallel passage given by the same prophet a couple chapters later in Ezekiel 14, verse 2, where Ezekiel, writing under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, writes concerning God, "I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be captured, the houses plundered, the women ravished, half of the city exiled," etc. And again, there's a reference to all nations coming against Israel in the end times. Boy, that scenario really doesn't seem so remote anymore, does it? As worldwide hatred for the Jews in general and the nation of Israel in particular, and the city of Jerusalem in particular and more specific, is coming into very, very sharp focus in our time period. Notice this article here. This one comes from JNS. I believe that stands for the Jewish News Syndicate. And this is a November 18th, 2025 article, and it says the Oxford Union came to a conclusion. Israel, they think, these geniuses at the Oxford Union, and I don't say that flippantly, these people are very, very smart, but they're obviously very, very misguided. They don't seem to have much of a moral compass. The Oxford Union has concluded that Israel is a greater threat than Iran. And here's what the article says. Members of the Oxford Union, the world's best-known debating society, last week voted in favor of a motion that called Israel a greater destabilizer than Iran, prompting criticism from the Jewish community and Jewish community leaders. The Oxford Union on Thursday voted overwhelmingly in favor of a motion declaring Israel a greater threat to regional stability than even Iran itself, following a debate between Hillel Nuer, the director of UN Watch, and another individual, a former Palestinian Authority prime minister, the Jewish Chronicle reported. Nuer, whose organization monitors expression of bias against the United Nations, argued that regional stability is measured by who starts wars, not who stops them, adding that Israel does not arm terror proxies in 5 Arab countries. The regime in Iran, in fact, does that. The entire Middle East knows this, and this is why Arab states quietly depend upon Israel for their own survival. There's a lot of comments that were made about the Oxford Union's conclusion here. I just want to read a little bit from someone named Rabbi, and let's see if I'm going to pronounce this right, Shmuley Boteach, I think is how you say this, a well-known debater and advocate of Israel, told JNS that the vote showed the IQ level of the students has cratered at Oxford, where he lived for 11 years until 1999. And it gives his title during that time period. And here's a quote from this rabbi. He says, quote, "In 20 years since I left Oxford University, its international reputation has been shredded, not just by rampant Israel hatred and anti-Semitism, but by deep anti-intellectualism, as evidenced by the utter stupidity of this resolution, the rabbi said. He added, quote, he has returned in all of its, ignominy, if I'm pronouncing that right, to its 1933 vote at the Union that would refuse to fight Hitler for their king, which at that time disgraced the entire university, the rabbi said. Only by this sickening vote that a democracy in the Middle East is more dangerous than the world's foremost sponsor of terror can what Oxford University did back in 1933 be equated. In other words, what they did in 1933 was outrageous, and this is, if it's not a tie for first, it's a very close second. The rabbi says this: anyone seeking a serious education should study in America, the rabbi said, though he added that there too, higher education was suffering from a meltdown of stupidity and amorality. Then he goes on and he says, but if you want to do arts and crafts and learn finger painting or how to create a paper mache, Oxford University would be a great choice, close quote, the rabbi said. I love his analysis. It's right on point. One of the things that's tragic about this is from this Oxford Union and supposedly the world's greatest debating society, this is where the future leaders of the UK and other places are going to come from. And so if this is how they think now, I mean, my goodness, how are they going to think, and how are they going to treat Israel once they ascend to positions of prominence on the global stage? So this is just another example of how our world is turning against Israel. Here is a map that we frequently show. Look at how little Israel is relative to the surrounding nations. Those green areas are Islamic countries that have written into their charters that they want to drive Israel into the sea. And that little tiny red dot is Israel. And yet that little tiny red dot is looked at as causing all the trouble in the world. In fact, Iran, and it's well known, since 1979, is the number one state sponsor of terror around the world. And how in the world would you say that Israel is somehow a greater villain, a greater danger to peace or stabilization in the region than Iran? I mean, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's only 14 million Jews roughly on planet Earth, and yet that 14 million is looked at as a greater villain than the 2 billion, with a B, Muslims worldwide. And somebody needs to get the message to Oxford University. Now, what is causing all of this anti-national Israel hatred? It's something called the OIC, which I'd like to bring to your attention. Notice this article here from, this one comes from Rare Foundation, November 14th, 2025 article, another Amy Mick article. And it says the world's most powerful Islamic organization, the OIC, is conquering the West. And Republicans silenced Michelle Bachmann for exposing it. This is something that Michelle Bachmann, then a member of I believe the House of Representatives from the state of Minnesota, was bringing to people's attention 10 years ago. And everybody just tried to shut her up, including members of her own party. And yet what she saw coming through the OIC is the type of global cooperation against Israel and censoring anybody that would dare speak against Islam. The things that she predicted would happen 10 years ago are happening right now. And shame on the Democratic leadership and the Republican leadership for trying to silence her voice a decade ago when she was trying to bring this to our attention. So a little bit about this subject, because if you can understand this subject, you can understand why the world is turning against Israel. It's because of something called the OIC. Just a little bit, if I could, from this article. It says Michelle Bachmann tried to warn America that the OIC, a powerful Sharia-driven Islamic superbloc aligned with communist regimes, I might add, at work in the United Nations. Real quickly, the OIC stands for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Anyway, she was warning that this organization was quietly capturing global institutions and rewriting Western laws. But Republicans at the time silenced her and cleared the path for the red-green axis, now conquering the West. Now, red, Marxism; green, the color of Islam. This is what the OIC is cooperating with as they flex their muscles in the United Nations. And this is why anybody worldwide that dares to speak out against Islam is, either thrown in jail or censored. And this is a group that has tremendous power in the United Nations. Everybody seems to be intimidated by them. And Michelle Bachmann 10 years ago was saying, watch out for this. When former U.S. Representative Michelle Bachmann addressed the Values Summit more than a decade ago, she delivered a warning Americans have really never heard, and the political establishment never wanted them to understand. It wasn't about terrorism in the traditional sense. It was about the OIC, an Islamic intergovernmental bloc with unprecedented global reach. The OIC is the second largest intergovernmental organization in the world after the United Nations, representing 57 member states and claiming to speak for 2 billion Muslims. It wields both ideological and diplomatic influence on a global scale. It is an intergovernmental bloc whose purpose is to erode classical Western principles such as freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, and to negate equality before the law, and to construct a matrix of Islamic dominance over international norms. In the summer of 2012, Bachmann and 4 colleagues sent formal letters to 5 federal inspectors generals, citing document ties between Huma Abedin's family and Muslim Brotherhood front groups that had long advanced the OIC agenda. And the article talks about how all the people dogpiled over 10 years ago on Michelle Bachmann for even bringing the subject up. Names that you know. John Boehner criticized her. The article gives the quotes of these so-called conservative lawmakers. John McCain criticized her, as did Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio. A few other names are given: Mike Rogers, Scott Brown, Ed Rollins. Here's what Ed Rollins says with particular venom, quote, to what Michelle Bachmann was trying to expose back then: downright vicious and reaches the late Senator Joe McCarthy level, Ed Rollins said. Shame on you, Michelle, close quote. And keep in mind that Ed Rollins was Michelle Bachmann's former campaign manager. Other names are given, like Jenny Brown Waite. Here's a name: Norm Coleman, senator from Minnesota, Bachmann's own state, and Joe Klein. And there was just a handful of people that stood with her during this time period. Here are the good guys: Trent Franks, Louis Gohmert from the great state of Texas that you probably know, not there anymore, unfortunately, Thomas Rooney, Lynn Westmoreland and Frank Wolf. And keep this in mind, only 5 House Republicans stood with her during this time period. But she was exposing the whole agenda of the OIC. The article talks about the plan, the 10-year plan of the OIC, which has obviously expanded beyond just 10 years. The article talks about the cost of the warning that nations around the world, including Europe, Canada, and the United States of America, would start to censor and jail people that dared criticize Islam in any way. And this is part of the globalist agenda. It's part of the one world agenda, and it fits perfectly with the pages of Bible prophecy, because Bible prophecy is very candid in predicting that the whole world will turn against Israel in the last days. Here's how the article sort of winds up. It says, today, the West lives with the consequences. A UN captured by OIC influence, a Europe cowed by hate speech laws, and an America whose institutions have been quietly rewritten from within. Even our own Department of Defense, military, etc., started to purge internal memos and manuals that had anything negative to say about Islam, Islamic terror, jihadist Islam, fundamentalist Islam. Suddenly you couldn't use those words anymore, and you can thank the OIC for it. So why is Islam on the ascendancy and Judaism is under persecution? There's an actual reason for that. It's called the OIC. Michelle Bachmann tried to warn about its influence in the UN. That warning went unheeded. As I said before, she was attacked by the other party and her own party. Nobody was standing with her. And here we are over a decade later bearing the consequences. So the world, just like God said it would, is turning against the nation of Israel. Speaking of which, global institutions turning against Israel. Notice this particular article from the Jerusalem Post, this one dated November 18th, 2025. It says, Israel submits requests to disqualify an international criminal court prosecutor, last name is Khan, and seeks to annul arrest warrants that were issued by the International Criminal Court against Netanyahu and Gallant. So what is this article about? It says this: International Criminal Court prosecutor, last name Khan, faces charges over accusations he made against Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant, says the writer. Israel appealed to the International Criminal Court Appeals Chamber on Monday to have the arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant, both of Israel, leadership in Israel, annulled. The foreign ministry confirmed. Furthermore, Israel has filed a request with the ICC Appeals Chamber to disqualify prosecutor Khan from involvement in any case against Israel. The request came amid information suggesting that Khan, listen to this, used false claims to target Israel in an attempt to deflect attention from allegations of sexual harassment against him by a female employee whom he managed. So here's this International Criminal Court prosecutor. And keep in mind, the International Criminal Court, I mean, that's just sort of a appendage, might we say, of the United Nations. It's, I would just call it this, the legal arm of the New World Order. I mean, it's a rogue court. It has universal jurisdiction throughout the earth, and it has the ability to prosecute anyone and anybody it wants to prosecute under the guise of statutes that are very nebulous, very vague, and very overbroad. I mean, it's absolutely frightening, the power that this court has. And here this prosecutor, by the way, you might know the name Jack Smith, who gave the Donald Trump such a difficult time. Where did Jack Smith come from? Where was his career? Where did he enjoy, if I could use that word? Where did he experience his career? Well, Jack Smith, sometimes called Jack the Ripper, had his career in a lot of it in the International Criminal Court. So if you want to know why he was such a rogue prosecutor, he had the ICC in his background. That's the type of prosecutor that these international courts like the ICC, this is what they produce. So my point is, here is this guy named Khan who is accused of sexual harassment of an employee. And so to deflect everyone's attention from this, he turns his sights on the nation of Israel and basically wants to arrest, not just disagree with, not just fine, but he wants to arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and Defense Minister, I think it is, Gallant of the nation of Israel. And so it is treatment against Israel that is completely unfair. Certainly he had some kind of legal pretext for this. Israel is, the way they're prosecuting the war in Gaza, in his mind, is illegal, which it isn't. But what we discovered is he did this to deflect attention from himself, because he himself was accused of sexual harassment. So how do things like this happen? How do you have a international structure that is anti-Semitic like this at its core? Well, I'll tell you how it happens. It happens because God said it would happen. The world, globally and internationally, one day would turn against Israel. So you have to have sort of a global supranational structure in place, which is anti-Semitic at its core. And you're seeing this all work out related to the International Criminal Court and also the power that the OIC possesses in the United Nations. As the world turns against Israel, let me show you a couple maps if I could. What the world is pushing is what's called the two-state solution. There's the first map, and the whole name of the game there is to take that territory that map calls the West Bank and take it away from Israel and give it to this mythical group of people called the Palestinians. Here's another map showing the same thing. It more appropriately names the area that is disputed. And it's not disputed, it's Israel's, but the world community wants you to believe it's disputed. It properly calls it Judea and Samaria. And so the whole world thinks that, boy, if we can take Judea and Samaria away from the nation of Israel, which, by the way, they won in a war of self-defense, going all the way back to 1967, what was that, June 5th, the Six-Day War. If we can take that territory away from Israel and give it to the Palestinians, then, kumbaya, peace will break out in the region. And this is called the two-state solution. And the whole thing is completely insane when you think about it, because that darker brown area is territory that the nation of Israel relinquished in 2004 to the so-called Palestinians or Gazans. And the inhabitants of Gaza had one and only one election in 2005. They elected Hamas. And ever since that point in time, Gaza, in the southwestern portion of the map there, has used that as a beachhead, whether it's rocket attacks or tunnels of terror, to launch one terrorist attack after another against the nation of Israel, culminating in the horrific events of October the 7th, 2023. So if the two-state solution didn't work so well with Gaza, who in their right mind would ever think it could work with the so-called West Bank, better named Gaza, better named Judea and Samaria? And yet this is what the world wants. And the whole world is being sucked into this even the late, great United States of America. Notice this particular article here describing this one also from JNS. It says the UN Security Council unanimously approves Trump's Gaza plan. What is this all about? Notice what the article says. It says the UN Security Council unanimously approved a U.S. drafted resolution supporting Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza. The resolution mandates the creation of, listen to this, an international stabilization force and a board of peace chaired by Trump, outlining, listen to this, a pathway to Palestinian statehood. That's the two-state solution that I was talking about earlier, contingent upon Hamas's demilitarization. This is a November 17th article. This was pushed through by Mike Waltz, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Trump apparently was very happy about it. Look at all of the people that signed on to this. The Arab countries plus Turkey plus Pakistan plus Indonesia are standing with us, the United Nations ambassador from America said. What do I make of this? As much as I'm a Trump supporter, I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. I mean, I don't like this at all. First of all, why not just let the Israelis handle Hamas in Gaza the way they want to handle it? After all, Gaza doesn't belong to anybody but the Israelis. God is very clear in the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 2, that the land is his, and he bequeathed it to the physical descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It doesn't belong to the Muslims. It doesn't belong to the Arabs. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to this peace board, so-called peace board. It belongs to the Jewish nation. And this apparently is moving us in the direction of a two-state solution where we're going to have, I guess, a Palestinian state and an Israeli state living side by side, contingent, of course, on the demilitarization of Hamas. You know, let's just say you get Hamas to agree to demilitarize. Can you take out of the hearts of the people of Hamas their hatred for the Jews? I mean, these are people who are trained from infancy, essentially, to hate the Jewish people and to hate the Jewish nation, and demilitarize all you want. You can't change the hate that is in their heart for the Jewish people. The only thing that can do that, in my humble opinion, change the heart, is the proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ itself, the personal gospel of salvation. Other than that, you can't change a heart. So whatever game is being played here by the world community, it's not going to bring any kind of lasting resolution. In fact, it's making things worse. It's taking away from Israel which rightfully belongs to Israel, and it's pretending like this is going to solve a problem which biblically we know cannot be solved. It also, I think, is sort of a pretext for the coming covenant of Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. I mean, why is it that the Jews have to reach out to the Antichrist for some kind of peace treaty, peace covenant, whatever we're going to call it, to guarantee their survival? Well, the reason is because they already gave away Gaza. And they already gave away the so-called West Bank, and their width has been reduced to less than 10 miles. And so now they're in a position, they're forced into a position where they have to reach out to the treaty from the Antichrist to guarantee their survival. And so these kinds of things that we see happening, this proposed two-state solution, this, Trump as some kind of executive over a board governing Gaza. I mean, all of these things, I believe, are preparatory for this coming peace treaty between the Antichrist and unbelieving Israel. And they really don't represent a lasting, true solution to the problem over there. So I see these things as prophetically significant. Notice what Trump said and boasted. This is from his Truth Social account concerning this. He said, "Congratulations to the world on the incredible vote of the United Nations Security Council just months ago, acknowledging and endorsing the Board of Peace, which will be chaired by me and include the most powerful and respected leaders throughout the world. This will go down as one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations. It will lead to further peace all over the world." Boy, that's a bit ambitious, isn't it? "And is a moment of true historic proportion!" Exclamation point. "Thank you to the United Nations and all the countries of the UN Security Council that signed on to this." And he lists them: China, Russia, France, the United Kingdom, Algeria, Denmark, Greece, Guyana, South Korea, Pakistan, Panama, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, Somalia. Also, thank you to those countries who weren't on this committee but strongly backed it, including Qatar, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, and Jordan. And here's how Trump concludes: "The members of the board and many more were exciting, or were on board with this, and many more exciting announcements will be made in the coming weeks." I mean, the fact that all of these Israel haters, these nations, a lot of them Marxists, a lot of them communist countries, the fact that they're all applauding this, I mean, that in and of itself should tell us that America is going the wrong direction with all of this. But America, very, very sadly, is being tied into this whole two-state solution mindset. I mean, I thought we were going to go a different direction based on what Trump recently said at the United Nations. He made a beautiful speech there. And then, you know, the ink on the speech is hardly dry before he turns around and he moves in this direction, this two-state solution direction. And we're watching people that formerly rejected the two-state solution have now flip-flopped and are now embracing the two-state solution. Notice this article from the Jerusalem Post concerning Lindsey Graham. Again, a recent article, November the 16th, 2025. It says, "Graham flips on the two-state solution, warning Israel no sustainable future without it." So the article talks about how this two-state solution came into existence in the first place. The article says 10 years earlier on a sunny June afternoon, Republican George W. Bush became the first American president to announce support for the two-state solution to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And based on what I said earlier, you know exactly what the two-state solution is. It's the Judea and Samaria, so-called West Bank giveaway. The moment George W. Bush, went this direction, the article says, once a Republican president endorsed the idea of a Palestinian state, Democrats fell in line, as did the rest of the global community. This two-state solution mentality became so popular that it was introduced and placed into the 2012 Republican Party platform. At that time, South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham endorsed it. For decades, Graham has been a strong supporter of Israel, but at the same time has advocated a two-state solution. Now, Lindsey Graham started to change his mind after the events of October the 7th, 2023. He said a two-state solution is unworkable. Graham saw the massacre of the Jews by the Palestinians on October the 7th, 2023, as a change in the Middle East. He changed his mind about the applicability of the two-state solution. After October the 7th declaring a Palestinian state after the attack would have been seen as rewarding terrorism, Senator Graham then said. Now, that's the Senator Graham that I like. But as we have moved further and further away from October the 7th, he has flip-flopped and switched back to his original position. The article says, yet Graham flipped back to his support of the two-state solution, no longer thinking that it would reward terrorism. In an interview with the Jerusalem Post, he warned Israelis that there is no sustainable future for Israel without a political horizon that separates Israelis and Palestinians into two states once the security conditions exist. Anything else, he warns, would either end Israel's Jewish character or leave millions permanently disenfranchised and isolate the country, Graham said. Quote, there is no other alternative. A one-state solution would either end Israel as a Jewish state or leave millions without rights, which the world will not accept. To be pro-Israel, you need to be honest with Israel. Close quote. The senator critiqued those advocating for annexation of Judea and Samaria. Quote, if you want to marginalize the Jewish state, go down that road. It will do more damage to Israel's future than any bomb Iran could ever build. You would lose support here in America, and you would isolate Israel from the rest of the world, close quote. So Graham, I guess, has switched back to advocating the two-state solution. He, along with J.D. Vance, you might remember, have openly criticized Israel for doing kind of a symbolic vote indicating that they want to annex the West Bank, which to me is a ludicrous concept. You can't annex something that you already own. But any move in this direction, our current leadership, Democrat and Republican, Trump included, seems to be well, let me rephrase that. Any move in this direction by our leadership, Republican or Democrat, essentially they're against this annexation. And the reason they're against this annexation, so-called, is they're trying to promote this two-state solution. Probably the only guy that we have with any degree of prominence in American politics is Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. For whatever reason, he gets it. And I think it has to do with his biblical understanding and his Christianity. Here's a quote from Mike Johnson. He says, quote, Judea and Samaria are the front line of the state of Israel and must remain an integral part of it. Even if the world thinks otherwise, we stand with you, speaking to Israel, and I think he's 100% right. What am I trying to get at, folks? Here's the point I'm trying to make. The world is turning against Israel very rapidly. The world community is locked into this two-state solution mentality. And I'm saddened to say that the president that I voted for 3 times, that generally I like on a lot of different issues, is moving in that direction as well. And this harmonizes with everything we're told concerning Bible prophecy in the prophecies of Zechariah, that the world, all the nations, which would include the United States and any other nation for that matter, enemies and allies alike, will turn against Israel in the last days. And that's what we're seeing materializing before our very eyes. So we've dealt with Israel's wealth. We've dealt with the world against Israel. Let's switch subjects, if we could, and deal briefly with mark of the beast technology, kind of as a jumping off point. For that, we like to reference the mark of the beast passage that's found in Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18. It says, "He," that's the false prophet, "causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or their forehead, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for that number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Lot can be said about this passage. The only thing I want to draw your attention to is how advancements in technology, and I like to bring these things to your attention in prophecy updates, are moving us, I used to say gradually, but it seems to me that they're moving us aggressively in the direction of this kind of scenario. 100 years ago, 50 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, you couldn't even imagine technology that would be on par with what the Bible anticipates for the end of the age. And so a couple of these things I'll show you are not a fulfillment of the mark of the beast prophecy, but they're clearly moving us in the direction of the fulfillment of this mark of the beast prophecy. So with that being said, notice this particular article here. This is actually a Substack blog post. The title of this, and this is dated November the 6th, 2025. This is written by Nick Holscher, I believe is how you pronounce that. The title of this is Bio-Digital Vaccine Passports on Patient Medical Record Keeping. And then there's a quote from the blog post. It says, "Once this is in you," so this is something that's going inside the body. "Once this is in you, they have you controlled." And that's it, basically. Close quote is what he says. Now, as I read some of this material to you, ask yourself this basic question. Is this moving us in the direction of the mark of the beast system or away from it? I mean, obviously, it's pushing us toward the kind of scenario envisioned in Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18. The article says a new technology on patient medical record keeping, otherwise known as OPMR, uses microneedles to encode medical information, including vaccine records, into the skin. This technology, developed with the funding from HHS, NIH, the Koch Institute, and listen to this, the Gates Foundation. I mean, Bill Gates had to be involved in this some way, somehow, aims to improve medical record keeping, especially in low resource settings. So we're doing this for the good of the poor. We're doing this for the good of humanity. The patches also deliver mRNA vaccines, making them a potential tool for future pandemics and other emergencies. I mean, imagine something that goes into the skin. According to this article, this can be done without internet connectivity, which functions sort of as a medical, what does it say here? Medical database on people. A medical database worldwide, an information retrieval system. And then it's able to administer vaccines. That's just stunning to me. How does this article conclude? It says, we all know about the safety and efficiency of the amazing mRNA vaccines, and to have them co-delivered straight into your bodies in tandem with our precious medical data is a stroke of genius. I think the article there is speaking facetiously. This new elegant technology will only turn us into walking biodigital vaccine passports that will be biosensed by deep learning-based image processing agents, but will be loaded with the newest and the best mRNA vaccines that science has to offer. How exactly does this biosensing work? It's simple, and it can be done with a smartphone. The article describes how. In cases of emergencies like in the pandemic or natural disasters or at refugee military camps, OPMR patches can be administered on demand. And not only administered, but possibly self-administered. The article says it's reassuring to know that we will not have to stand in line during the next pandemic. The dissolvable microneedle patch might come to you the old-fashioned way, snail mail, so that you can administer it to yourself in the privacy of your home. And this is all connected to your passport. I mean, you can't travel unless you have the right medical credentials. A biodigital passport could be good for all sorts of things that society has to offer. It would make a tremendous, listen to this, open sesame for daily life, from the doors to the supermarket to the doors of the restaurant, movie, theater, and bus. Not to forget the door to one's own apartment. The article concludes as follows, to keep us all safe, of course. Because what if you forgot to administer the patch sent to you in the mail? No big deal. You will be reminded as soon as you try to get out the door. Close quote. So think about this, something that goes inside the skin, something that administers to you the proper vaccine based on the latest pandemic or plandemic or mandemic, whatever we're going to call it. Something that allows people to have access to all of these medical records all over the world, and something that's tied to traveling. You can't travel unless you have the right medical credentials. And think about it being tied to whether your front door to your apartment opens or closes to let you in or let you out. I mean, it's amazing what is being discussed here. And all of a sudden, Revelation 13, verses 16 through 18 doesn't look that wild and crazy at all. I mean, this looks like something that's coming at us, with great velocity. There's something else I'll bring to your attention related to this Mark of the Beast technology. This is an article from OAN.com. This one dated November the 14th, 2025. It says, Apple unveils a digital ID allowing users to upload passport info onto an iPhone wallet. I mean, at first glance, it looks harmless until you look at some of the details. The article says Apple has launched a digital ID feature allowing U.S. residents to add their passport information to Apple Wallet for domestic travel identifications at TSA checkpoints. While Apple emphasizes convenience and security, see, that's how all of these things are sold to us. It's easier than fumbling around for your passport. It's for your own safety and security. While Apple emphasizes convenience and security, some express concerns about the potential for increased surveillance and control. Think Revelation 13, 16 through 18. The feature is being sold as a new form of convenience. Although some social media users have expressed reservations about the convergence of identification onto a digital hub. Listen to this. BitChute founder Ray Vahey, I believe is how you pronounce that, issued concerns in an X post after the feature was announced, arguing that digital ID, quote, isn't just about convenience. It's part of a global push toward a mandatory digital ID system. Now, this is the founder of BitChute, someone that has technological sophistication, knowledge, and understanding. He says, quote, EU, the UK, Australia, and Canada are all implementing similar frameworks. The pattern is clear. Everyday activities, traveling, browsing, websites, accessing apps are being transformed into checkpoints regarding digital credentials issued by centralized authorities, he wrote. The quote continues. When identity verification becomes the gateway to participation in society, we need to ask who controls access? What happens when you're locked out? Digital ID systems promise security, but they create an infrastructure for unprecedented surveillance and control. Once built, these systems rarely stay limited to their original purposes. Can I read that sentence again? Once built, these systems rarely stay limited to their original purposes. We should be very cautious about sleepwalking into a future where basic freedoms depend upon showing your digital credentials, close quote, Vahey added. Just a simple question once again, folks. Are these things pushing us further away from a mark of the beast scenario or closer to it? I think the answer is obvious. Let's move to our fourth area here. We can do this very quickly. This has to do with persecution. We know that persecution is coming in the end times. It's predicted in places like Revelation 17, verse 6, which talks about the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the witnesses of Jesus. And verse 15 of Revelation 17 says, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. This is talking about the city and the system of the Antichrist in the last days being drunk with the blood of the saints. It has a global influence, and it's obviously talking about global persecution coming against God's people in the end times. It's hard to go through the news today without seeing massive evidence of this, not just worldwide, but even right here in the late, great United States of America. So with that being said, let me quickly draw your attention to this article from CBN. This one dated November the 18th, 2025. It says, Judge orders a Maine mom to not take her daughter to church or read her the Bible. This is a child custody dispute, and it says this. Well, let me just give a summary of the article if I could. The Maine Supreme Judicial Court is reviewing a custody order prohibiting Emily Beckford from taking her daughter, Ava, to church or reading her the Bible. Now, this church, as you read through this article, is a Bible-centered Calvary Chapel church. Her and Ava's father, Emily and Ava's father, I think his first name is Matthew, had Ava out of wedlock. And essentially, he thinks that the mom taking the daughter to church and reading her the Bible is some form of cultism, is some form of child abuse. And he actually got a court in Maine to agree with him. And now this has gone all the way to the highest court, I believe, in the state of Maine, where we're expecting a ruling at any moment. It says the order stemming from a dispute with Ava's father, Matthew Bradeen, restricts Ava's religious activities and associations. Liberty Counsel representing Bickford argues the order violates parental rights and religious freedom, while Bradeen's attorney emphasizes the child's best interests. There's a lot of verbiage in this article, which I don't have time to share with you, but I'm just trying to show you the sad direction that our judiciary has turned in our country, particularly in the state of Maine, where a mom wants to take her child to church. And by the way, this is a church where there's a homeschooling network, and Ava has all these peers and friends. And here the husband wants to put a stop to it, and he wants to put a stop to the mom reading the Bible to the child in the home. And then you actually have a court that agrees with him that such activity is not in the best interest of the child because it's cult-like behavior. It's just sad to me that you actually have a court that would agree with that sentiment. And so we hope and pray that this decision will be reversed and the Maine Supreme Court will do the right thing, because after all, God put children under the authority of parents. I mean, this is as old as Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 through 7, the great Hebrew Shema, where it says, "Hear, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." And then it says, Deuteronomy 6:6 and verse 7, "These words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up." And this concept of parental discipling of children that's outlined there in the book of Deuteronomy is found in the New Testament as well. You'll see it in passages like Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. So here's a mom taking her responsibilities to her own child seriously, and here comes the American legal system putting a stop to it. I mean, what about the rights of the parents? What about freedom of religion rights? What about freedom of speech rights? It's almost like those are concepts that are not even considered when a rogue court makes a decision like this. And so, as I said before, I'm hoping and praying that the Maine Supreme Court will do the right thing here. But don't expect decisions like this to get any better. The Bible clearly anticipates persecution of God's people in the last days. And you know persecution is here when they're trying to stop you from discipling, evangelizing, Christianizing your own children. Let's go to our final category, and we're going to wrap up with this last category today, societal sins. We have a screenshot there of Revelation chapter 9, verses 20 and 21, which talks about the 7 or so sins that will dominate society in the end times, 2 of which you can see from the underlining are the worship of demons and murders. We actually have a list there of the sins of society coming from that passage, and you'll notice let's see if we can advance the slide. I think we have a list of 7. You'll notice there that we have demon worship and murder underlined. We could talk about all of these if time permitted, but let's just talk about those 2. So if I'm understanding the Bible correctly, these kind of sins will become normalized. They will become mainstreamed as we get closer and closer to the end of the age. And let's take these one by one. The first one is the worship of demons. The Bible condemns something called necromancy. Here are the Bible verses against necromancy. I think we have a screenshot of that. Those are 6 verses that you could go to and study in your Bible that the Bible condemns necromancy, meaning consulting the dead, having conversations with the deceased, seeking guidance from the deceased, because as far as the biblical worldview is concerned, when you talk to the deceased, you're not talking to the deceased, you're talking to Satan or demons pretending to be the deceased, because Satan, of course, masquerades as an angel of light. And so the more you seek guidance from entities and forces like this, the more you're opening yourself up to the satanic and the demonic realm. So with that being said, notice this blog piece from prophecy teacher Britt Gillette. And the title of his blog piece, dated November the 11th, 2025, is Stay Away from Suzanne Summers. And the subtitle is People Around the World Are Inviting the Demonic into Their Lives. And it has to do with technology, which allows people to speak to, converse with those loved ones that are no longer with us through death. So here's a summary of the article. It says Suzanne Summers' husband, I believe her husband is Alan Hamill. Suzanne Summers died a few years back. Suzanne Summers' husband created an AI version of her, listen to this, generative ghost to interact with fans. This technology offered by various companies allows people to create digital replicas of deceased loved ones. It has a statement here from Alan Hamill. One of the things he said is as he conversed with his deceased wife, famous actress Suzanne Summers, he forgot about the fact that he was talking to a robot, and he was actually getting used to the whole idea. So this AI technology has allowed something that we might consider to be necromancy to be mainstreamed in our society. The article says this: think of Superman conversing with the 3D twin of his Kryptonian father, Jor-El, in the Fortress of Solitude. You might remember that scene from the Superman movies, who continued to give sage advice to his son long after he had perished. These are called generative ghosts. Generative ghosts go further than being AI digital twins that think, sound, and look like the dead. They can also generate new conversations based on new life events or current events, according to researchers. People are in effect recreating the dead, the article says. It is inviting the demonic into your life. The Bible is clear. Calling forth spirits of the dead is detestable to the Lord. He provides here a lengthy quote from one of the verses that were on our screen earlier, Deuteronomy 18, verses 9 through 14, where God condemns calling forth the spirits of the dead. You see, as this technology is becoming available and mainstream to everyone, rich and poor alike, it's not just the super rich that can dabble in this now. The technology allows anybody to access these kinds of things. Something called necromancy is looked at now as normal in our society. And what I believe is that the demons can use this to usher in tremendous deception into the human race. We know that such deception is coming if it's not here already, and Satan will use any lever he can into a culture to push us in the direction he wants to push us into. And one of the things that's starting to become mainstreamed is necromancy. And what's the problem with necromancy? Look, I can do it here with AI technology. So our sensibilities are being lowered to the biblical condemnations of necromancy. And this particular article does a great job of footnoting and sourcing all of the different news sources and news articles where people, whether it's posts on X, mainstream, newspaper, magazines, etc., where people are indulging in this. Here's how the article concludes. This rise of AI degenerative ghosts and other AI afterlife products are only the latest indication of the times in which we live. In my opinion, Britt Gillette rightfully says, they invite the demonic into the lives of those who use them, setting people up for psychological and spiritual trauma capable of ruining their lives. It's really no different than consulting a medium or calling forth a spirit of the dead. So sound the alarm to everyone you can before this detestable practice becomes even more ingrained in our modern culture. You see, the very societal sins that God says would dominate the earth in the end times are being normalized and mainstreamed, and AI, sadly, a misuse of it, is leading the way. One other fast thing that is becoming normalized in our society, and even before I get to that last fast thing, don't forget what 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 23 says. But now he has died. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back? He will not return to me. Now, this is David and his reaction upon learning about the death of his child that was born through the adulterous union between himself and Bathsheba. And he specifically says, I can't bring him back once he died. So this idea that you can consult the dead and talk to the dead is unbiblical. Luke 16, verse 26 seems to address this. This is concerning the rich man that died and went into hell. And he had 5 brothers. Send someone back to the other side to warn them of their unbelief so they don't end up in this terrible place. Luke 16:26 says, and besides all this, between us and you there is a great chasm fixed, so that those who wish to come over from here to you will not be able, and that none may cross over from there to us. I mean, once you enter the afterlife, things are fixed, and the potential of the deceased speaking back into our lives is not a biblical reality. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27 says it's appointed for man to die once, and after this comes the judgment. So when you open yourself up to necromancy, they think that they're speaking to the deceased, which is a biblical impossibility. So really, the entities that they're speaking to are demons pretending to be the deceased. And they will use that as a vehicle or as a channel to push humanity into greater and greater deception. This is one of the reasons God brings judgment to the world in the end times, and our society is normalizing this kind of practice. One other thing that's being normalized is murder. I mentioned 2 of the great 7 sins that will characterize society in the end times. One, the worship of demons, which seems to be happening more and more as our society embraces necromancy. But the other is murder, and here I'm talking about self-murder. And I just want to draw your attention to something that happened. This one comes from the Western Journal, I think it is. This one is dated November the 18th, 2025, and it says, famous twin sisters, Divia, I think is how you pronounce that. Famous twin sisters simultaneously assisted suicide. So this is a tragic article about 2 famous people who decided to end their lives. And here's what the article says. According to CNN, Alice and Ellen Kessler, the 89-year-old German twins who performed alongside the greatest entertainers of the post-war era in Europe and the United States, died Monday in Munich, Germany, by joint-assisted suicide. Sadly, the famous sisters had no known terminal illnesses. They simply chose to end their lives together. More than a year ago, the Kessler twins joined the assisted suicide group, German Society for Humane Dying. Listen to their background. Born in 1936, the Kessler twins survived Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany and World War II. According to the UK's Independent, they then escaped communist-controlled East Germany for the West in 1952. Their rise to stardom included appearances on American variety shows such as The Ed Sullivan Show and The Red Skelton Hour. They also performed with entertainment icons such as Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and Fred Astaire. Traditionally, the argument for assisted suicide has involved putting an end to suffering. In this case, however, the Kessler twins apparently had no such motive. They simply wanted to die together. That kind of attitude seems more likely to develop in cultures where people demonstrate insufficient respect for life and death. In the modern West, for instance, the dominant secular culture treats human beings as most inconvenient at the beginning and the end of life. For convenience sake, therefore some must die. Close quote. So the reason this is interesting to me is this is self-murder, suicide, for no apparent reason that we know of, other than these two wanted to do it. And the fact that they're famous and did this shows you that this practice of murder, the destruction of life, even if it's self-destruction, suicide, the devaluation of life, is becoming more and more normal and more mainstream in our society. Certainly we see that through euthanasia, abortion, but here it is brought to the surface again through two famous people that decided to end their lives for no real apparent reason. And I think this kind of practice is going to catch on, just like necromancy is being mainstreamed and normalized. And so those are two ways where the sins of society and the sins of culture that the Bible anticipates for the end of the age are becoming more and more mainstreamed, normalized, and prominent in our day. So that takes us to the end of our prophecy update for today. Dealt with Israel's wealth, the world turning against Israel, the movement towards Mark of the Beast technology, some words about persecution ramping up, and then we mentioned some sins of society in the end times. We always like to end these with a note of hope. Titus 2 and verse 13 says, looking for the blessed hope in the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ. Hey, folks, I'm not looking for this world to get better. I am looking for the soon return of Jesus to take me out of this world. And one of these days, he's going to do that. And roughly 7 years after that happens, he will establish his long-awaited kingdom on the earth. That's where my hope is. That's what I'm praying for. Thy kingdom come. And I hope you're tied into that promise and your hope doesn't rest on the shifting sands of this world. You can be tied into that promise by placing your personal trust, even as I am speaking, into the person of Jesus Christ and what he did for us 2,000 years ago to fix a problem about ourselves that we can't fix, our sin problem. And he is not a solution. He is the only solution to the mess that this world is moving in the direction of. Some infomercials by way of closing. Catch Andy Wood's ministries in podcast format. Pastor's Point of View available in podcast format. Go to wherever it is you get your podcasts, type in Andy Wood's Ministries into the search engine, and right there at your fingertips, enjoy Pastor's Point of View in podcast format. Hey, maybe you're interested in catching our content on an app. Go to the App Store, type in Andy Wood's Ministries, download our free app, catch our material that way. Maybe you want to catch our material on the internet, go to andywoodsministries.org, get our content that way. That's our website. And beyond that, there's a very conspicuous way on the homepage of our website to sign up for our newsletter, which will show up in your inbox every time we post a Pastor's Point of View show. These notes that I read from in the form of links will show up in your inbox every Friday morning if you sign up for that. Maybe you have a Bible question and you don't have access to a theologian or a pastor or a scholar to help you with it. Check out the Ask Andy Got a Question tool. Just type your question into the question box, hit send, and it will do an instantaneous search of my sermon archives and will give you an answer in a very readable paragraph or two. It will actually take you to the exact place in the sermon where I dealt with those particular subjects, and it will give you follow-up questions that you could ask as well. If you're interested in seminary training, check out the seminary that I'm the president of, Chafer Theological Seminary. Go to chafer.edu. And while you're there, download a free copy of our hot off the press latest journal. This is going to be Pneumaticos Volume 16, I believe it is, issue number 2, the latest in academic articles defending the things that we believe in and teach at Chafer Theological Seminary. If you're looking for more of an academic prophecy conference coming up, check out the pre-trib study group meeting December 8th through 10th in the Dallas area. Go to, as you can see at the top, pre-trib.org to learn more about that. A lot of speakers this year. I'm going to be one of them, dealing with Revelation 3, verse 10, and why that's a pre-trib rapture verse. Love to have you come to our prophecy conference 2026, February 20th and 21st. This conference has become so popular that we want to accommodate as many people as we can. So we are meeting this year for the first time at the Marriott City Walk right across the street from Sugarland Town Square. And the theme of our conference this year is Last Day's Discernment. This will be our 5th annual prophecy conference hosted by Sugarland Bible Church, and the lineup is just stellar. Paul Wilkinson, Russ Miller, Olivier Melnick, Patrick Wood, Alex Newman, myself. We'll be interviewing Melissa Hooray. Special worship done by Olam Worship, Q&A session at the end. Friday evening, there's a banquet, a Shabbat meal. So it's a conference that goes all day Friday and it goes all day Saturday. Check-in and registration and worship time Thursday evening, and go to profcon.com to sign up for that conference. You'll also find a link to profcon.com at the Sugarland Bible Church website, slbc.org. We got a conference coming up also right after that, March the 14th, 2026. It's an all-day Saturday event in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Great prophecy conference. I'm one of many speakers at that Saturday event. Love to see you there. And then it's not too early, I guess, to think about August 2026, an East Coast prophecy conference entitled From Abraham to Armageddon. And you can see the speakers. I'm one among many that will be speaking at that event. And if you're looking for maybe a trip to the Holy Land, a Bible Lands cruise, check out this Bible Lands cruise. Look at where it goes. 5-star ship, 9-day cruise, 3 countries, 5 days in Israel, September 24th through October the 10th, 2026. I'll be teaching on location as we cover all of these areas, including Israel, that Paul visited in the book of Acts. And I'll be teaching on the ship as well, along with Bill Perkins of Compass Ministries, who's hosting the event. And one other fast thing is my book, The Bible and Your Vote, is now out, teaching you how to vote, not based on party loyalty, but what saith the Word of God on all of the political subjects that we regularly contend with as voters. So with that being said, that's it for our show today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And Lord willing, we will see you next time on Pastor's Point of View. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. God bless you.